Each morning, before the world stirs too loudly, there is a moment of stillness. It is in this quiet that we must ask ourselves, what is within my control today? And just as importantly, what is not? The world is full of noise, events we cannot predict, people we cannot change, outcomes we cannot command. But there is one realm that remains always ours, the realm of our own mind, our own judgment, our own choices. To live well is not to chase every desire, nor to flee every discomfort. It is to meet each moment with clarity and calm, to greet fortune and misfortune alike as messengers, not masters. It is to say, this is what I am given. Let me meet it with reason, with dignity, with purpose. We do not control the weather, but we can choose the cloak we wear. We do not control the conduct of others, but we can master our own. We cannot make time pause, but we can choose how to use this hour, this breath, this step. Anger, fear, envy, these are not visitors from outside. They arise from our own misunderstanding, from the stories we tell ourselves. Change the story and you change your state. Remind yourself, nothing is owed to me, all that I have is a gift. And even loss when it comes is part of the same natural cycle that gave me joy. So today, walk lightly, speak honestly, do not rush, do not cling. Meet the duties of the day not as burdens but as chances to practice excellence of character. Whether in silence or in speech, in work or in rest, let your actions say, I have chosen to live deliberately. And when the night returns, ask not whether you succeeded by the world's measures, but whether you were true to your own nature. If so, that is enough. That is more than enough. Each day presents a flood of circumstances, people and outcomes that lie far beyond the boundary of our control. We are surrounded by opinions we do not share, decisions we did not make, and outcomes we did not design. In the midst of all this, we often feel overwhelmed, as if we must take responsibility for everything that touches our lives. But the foundation of inner peace begins with understanding this simple truth. Not everything is up to us. There exists a narrow domain in which our influence is absolute, and outside that there is only what happens. What is within our control are our own thoughts, our intentions, our decisions, and the actions that flow from them. This space, though small in comparison to the vastness of the world, is where our freedom lives. No one can force us to believe a lie. No one can compel us to hate, to envy, or to despair. These things arise when we surrender our reason, when we forget that our minds are our own. We may not control whether the sky clouds or the market crashes, whether others insult or praise us, but we do control our response. We have the ability to choose how we interpret events and how we react to them. Confusion arises when we blur the line between what is ours and what is not. We stress over the actions of others, over the unpredictable turns of life, as if they were extensions of our own will, but they are not. And by attempting to control the uncontrollable, we exhaust ourselves and invite frustration. The wise person sees where effort is fruitful and where it is wasted. He does not rage at the storm or plead with fate. Instead, he asks, what part of this belongs to me? And acts only within that space. He does not shrink from responsibility, but neither does he arrogantly assume control over what is not his to command. This discipline requires honesty. It is easy to claim we are victims of chance or that the world is against us. It is harder to look within and ask if we have exercised our reason well, if we have chosen rightly. Freedom lies not in reshaping the world to our will, but in shaping our will to meet the world as it is. To say, this I cannot change, but I can govern my reaction, is not weakness. It is strength. It is self-possession in the truest sense. Even the smallest moments reflect this truth. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You can stew in anger, imagining slights and offenses, or you can recognize that their behavior is beyond your grasp. What remains is your choice, to hold on to peace or to forfeit it. The same applies to relationships, to work, to health, to politics. When we build our happiness upon the shifting sands of external outcomes, we are always vulnerable. But when we build upon what is stable, our own moral purpose, we are free. This is not to say we should be passive. Action is necessary, even urgent in many cases. But action must be guided by wisdom. We act where we can with clarity about our role, and we release the rest. If our effort leads to the result we hope for, we are grateful. If it does not, we remain unshaken, knowing we did our part. That is the essence of a life in harmony with nature, not to manipulate events, but to meet them with the steady hand of self-command. This mindset must be cultivated daily. Each morning we can remind ourselves, there will be obstacles, there will be disorder, and there will be events that do not go according to plan. But none of these can touch our reason, our will, or our ability to act with virtue unless we allow them to. The power lies in our judgment, in the space between stimulus and response, in the refusal to let the external world dictate the state of our inner life. Life does not ask for our permission before it changes course. Fortune rises and falls with a rhythm we cannot command, and both success and failure come uninvited. In the face of this, the wise do not build their sense of peace upon favorable conditions. Instead, they learn to meet fortune and misfortune with the same calm disposition, understanding that both are part of the same unfolding. Good fortune does not signal divine favor, just as misfortune does not indicate divine punishment. These are simply the movements of the world, indifferent to our preferences, and our task is not to cling to one or flee from the other, but to respond to both with steadiness. When prosperity comes, wealth, recognition, comfort, it is tempting to grasp tightly, to believe we are owed these things, or that we have finally reached a point where struggle no longer applies to us. Yet attachment to what is temporary makes us vulnerable. What is given can be taken. If our peace depends on external rewards, then our peace is fragile. The wise person enjoys what is present, but does not identify with it. They are grateful, but not dependent. They understand that fortune lends, not gives, and that even the sweetest moments may be brief. And so they do not become arrogant in success or fearful of its loss. Likewise, when adversity arrives, loss, illness, failure, it is easy to recoil, to feel cursed or unjustly treated. But misfortune, too, is part of the human path. It does not single us. To suffer is not exceptional, it is natural. What makes us suffer more deeply is our resistance, our demand that the world be other than it is. Yet those who have trained their minds to see clearly understand that adversity is not inherently evil. It is only our judgment that brands it as such. Hardship can refine character. Difficulty can strengthen resolve. Setbacks can reveal what is truly important. The world tests us not because it is cruel, but because it is indifferent. Our response is what gives meaning to our circumstance. To meet both fortune and misfortune with equanimity is not to be cold or unfeeling. It is to have proper perspective. The person of wisdom does not dance too wildly when praised, nor sink too low when scorned. They remain balanced, not because they are detached from life, but because they have chosen not to let external events rule them. This balance gives freedom. When one is not enslaved to pleasure or fear, they become capable of acting rightly, even in the midst of chaos. Their strength does not come from avoiding misfortune, but from learning how to stand firm within it. This mindset must be cultivated through practice. It is not enough to nod in agreement when things are easy. The test comes when reality contradicts desire. A loved one disappoints us. A career path closes. A plan falls apart. In these moments, the untrained mind resists, complains, and blames. The trained mind observes, accepts, and adapts. It does not deny the pain, but it does not let the pain define it. It asks, what can I learn from this, rather than, why me? It responds with virtue rather than reaction. No amount of fortune makes us immune to misfortune. No status or wealth can place us above the reach of fate. What we can build, however, is an inner posture that does not rise and fall with every wave. We can choose to regard success as a chance to practice humility, and hardship as a chance to practice resilience. In this way, every event becomes an opportunity to strengthen our character, not a threat to our peace. To live according to nature and reason is to align oneself with the deeper order of existence, to move in harmony with the way things are rather than the way we wish them to be. Nature is not just trees and rivers, it is also the nature of being human. It is in our nature to reason, to reflect, to act with intention. When we stray from this, when we allow impulse, emotion, or ego to rule us, we fall out of step with our true self. Living well, then, is not about wealth or fame or pleasure, but about living in accordance with what it means to be a rational, moral being. This does not mean we become indifferent or passive. Rather, it means we apply discernment to every situation. Reason allows us to see beyond the surface, to pause before reacting, to ask whether actions contribute to virtue or merely to gratification. A person driven only by desire acts like an animal chasing food. A person ruled by anger lashes out without thinking, but a person guided by reason chooses a response that reflects clarity and integrity. They do not suppress emotion out of fear, but they examine it and decide whether it serves a worthy purpose. Living according to nature also means accepting the impermanence of things. Everything in life is part of a larger cycle: growth, decay, birth, death. We are part of that rhythm, not separate from it. To resist this truth is to invite frustration. We are not gods who can halt the turning of the world. We are temporary travelers in a vast, unfolding process. Recognizing this helps us let go of what we cannot keep and embrace what we can do in the time we are given. It teaches us to act with care and urgency, knowing that our choices are brief sparks in the flow of time, yet still meaningful. To follow reason is to ask constantly, what is the right thing to do here? Not to what will bring me the most praise or comfort. This demands courage. The right path is often the harder one. It may cost us in reputation, opportunity, or ease. But virtue is not about convenience. It is about excellence of character. When we act out of principle, even when no one is watching, we affirm our commitment to something higher than selfish gain. That is the essence of living well. Not to be perfect, but to strive continually toward the good. This way of life requires vigilance. The world is full of distractions, temptations, and false measures of success. It tells us to chase more, to win at all costs, to look out for ourselves above all else. But this is a distortion. It leads to a life of anxiety, competition, and emptiness. In contrast, the life of reason is simple, grounded, and free. It asks only that we act justly, speak truthfully, and accept what comes without complaint. This kind of life may not look glamorous, but it offers something more enduring than fame or fortune: inner peace. Living according to nature and reason is not something we achieve once, but something we practice daily. Each moment presents a choice: to follow impulse or to follow principle, to react blindly or to respond thoughtfully. We do not control what happens, but we always control how we meet it. Even in hardship, we can live rightly. Even in failure, we can maintain our dignity. This is what separates the person who merely exists from the one who truly lives. Desire and fear are the twin forces that often pull us away from peace. Desire urges us forward, chasing after things we believe we need to be complete: wealth, status, admiration, pleasure. Fear holds us back, warning us of loss, failure, rejection, pain. Both arise from the same root: a mistaken belief that our well-being depends on what happens outside us. The truth is that suffering does not come from external events themselves, but from the judgments we attach to them. If we can see through these false beliefs, we can begin to loosen the grip of desire and fear on our minds. Desire seduces us with the promise of fulfillment. We imagine that if only we had this possession, that achievement, or that person's approval, then we would be content. But desire is insatiable. No matter how much we gain, the mind soon moves on to the next want. There is no end point, only a shifting target. The more we attach our happiness to what lies outside us, the more we hand over our peace to forces we cannot control. True freedom comes not from satisfying every desire, but from learning which desires are worth keeping and which are illusions. Fear, in the same way, distorts our view of life. It projects threats into the future and convinces us that we are not strong enough to face them. We fear what people might think, what we might lose, what suffering may come. But fear is often just desire in disguise, the desire to preserve comfort, security, or reputation. To overcome fear is not to become reckless, but to remember that the things we dread cannot touch our inner character unless we allow them to. Loss, pain, and hardship are part of life, but cowardice, panic, and despair are choices we make in response to them. When we step back and examine our thoughts honestly, we begin to see how often they are shaped by these two forces. We agree to things we do not believe in because we desire approval. We avoid difficult conversations because we fear discomfort. We waste time chasing things that do not matter because we desire validation. And we hold back from meaningful action because we fear failure. This cycle continues unless we pause and ask, is this truly necessary? Is this under my control? Is this desire or fear guiding me to act in accordance with my values? To detach from these forces is not to stop caring. It is to care wisely. It is to choose our values over our impulses, our principles over our cravings. It is to remember that nothing external, no praise, no possession, no outcome can add or subtract from our worth. We already have within us the capacity for peace, reason, and integrity. When we let go of what we cannot keep and stop fearing what we cannot avoid, we uncover what was always there. A quiet, steady strength that does not depend on circumstance. This does not mean we become indifferent to the world. Rather, it means we relate to it with clarity. We enjoy what is good while it is here, but we are prepared to let it go when it passes. We face pain not with bitterness but with resolve, knowing it does not define us. We stop imagining that happiness is something to be acquired, and realize it is a way of being. When we no longer chase after what is unnecessary or run from what is inevitable, we become still inside, even when the world around us is not. The mind trained in this way becomes lighter. It sees through the illusions that once caused so much turmoil. It recognizes the traps of comparison, of envy, of false urgency. It learns to say no not only to others but to itself. No to pointless worry, no to hollow ambition, no to self-pity. And in that refusal, it discovers a deeper yes. A yes to simplicity, to presence, to the quiet dignity of being governed by wisdom rather than by appetite or fear. Each day brings with it countless chances to practice excellence of character, not in grand gestures or dramatic sacrifices, but in the quiet, ordinary actions that shape who we are becoming. The Stoic does not wait for the perfect moment to act well. They recognize that every moment, no matter how small or mundane, is an opportunity to live according to virtue. Whether speaking kindly to a stranger, completing a task with care, or choosing patience over irritation, these are the daily exercises that form the foundation of a good life. Excellence is not a matter of talent or temperament, but of choice. At any given moment, we can choose honesty over deceit, humility over pride, discipline over indulgence. These choices may seem insignificant in isolation, but together they define our character. A life of virtue is not built in a single decision, but in thousands of small decisions, made consistently and with intention. The person who waits for inspiration or ideal circumstances before acting rightly is like a musician who waits for the perfect concert hall before practicing. Virtue is trained, not stumbled upon. There is no duty so small that it does not deserve care. The way we respond to a colleague's mistake, how we speak when frustrated, the diligence we bring to our responsibilities, these are not beneath us. They are the very training ground of moral strength. To treat each task as an opportunity to practice excellence is to live with purpose, even in the most routine parts of life. It is to affirm, again and again, that who we are matters more than what we gain. The person who sees life this way does not divide their time into important and unimportant moments. All of life is important because all of it offers the chance to align action with principle. A moment of silence can be used to reflect. A difficult conversation can be used to develop courage. A setback can be used to cultivate resilience. There is no wasted time if each moment is approached as part of one's moral training. This perspective transforms how we engage with the world. We stop treating duties as burdens and begin to see them as tools to sharpen the soul. This practice demands presence. We cannot act rightly if we are distracted or disconnected. Attention is the gateway to virtue. When we are fully present, we notice the needs of others, we recognize our own impulses, and we catch ourselves before we drift into thoughtless behavior. Excellence begins with awareness of our values, our habits, and the subtle ways in which we betray or uphold them throughout the day. Without attention, even the most well-meaning person becomes reactive, pulled by emotion or circumstance rather than guided by intention. The cultivation of excellence is not without struggle. There will be moments of failure when we act in ways that are selfish, impatient, or cowardly. But these are not reasons to despair. They are moments to learn, to reflect, and to recommit. The path of virtue is not linear, nor is it free from difficulty. What matters is not that we never fall, but that we rise again with greater clarity. The daily work of living rightly includes the work of forgiving ourselves, adjusting our course, and continuing on with humility. What makes a life meaningful is not the applause we receive or the rewards we gather, but the quiet consistency of acting in accordance with our highest self. This is not glamorous. It does not always feel rewarding in the moment. But over time it builds something enduring, a conscience at peace, a mind that is disciplined and a heart that seeks what is right over what is easy. To practice excellence daily is to commit not to perfection, but to growth. It is to understand that we are always in training, and that the world, with all its trials and tests, is the perfect place to become who we are meant to be. At the end of each day, when the noise quiets and distractions fade, we are left alone with ourselves. This is the moment that reveals who we are more clearly than any public success or failure. In the privacy of reflection, there is no audience to impress, no opponent to defeat, no status to maintain. There is only the quiet voice of the conscience asking whether we lived in accordance with our values. Daily reflection is not about judgment or shame. It is about clarity. It is a practice of returning to what matters, of realigning ourselves with the principles we claim to uphold. To reflect honestly requires courage. It is far easier to distract ourselves with entertainment, to carry the momentum of the day into sleep, and to avoid the stillness that reveals uncomfortable truths. But without this stillness, we drift. We begin to live out of habit rather than intention. We start measuring success by the praise we receive or the results we achieve, forgetting that the true standard lies within. Daily reflection pulls us back to that standard. It asks not whether we won or lost, but whether we acted with courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. This practice is not about reviewing events through the lens of perfection. Mistakes are inevitable. What matters is how we respond to them. In reflection, we can ask, did I respond with patience when provoked? Did I speak the truth when it was difficult? Did I treat others with dignity, even when they did not return it? Did I fulfill my responsibilities with care, or did I cut corners? Each of these questions points not to outcomes, but to character. They remind us that virtue is not a prize we claim, but a path we walk, and that progress is made not in leaps, but in steady, conscious steps. Reflection is also an opportunity to reinforce what went well. Too often we fixate on shortcomings and overlook quiet victories. The moment we resisted anger, chose humility over pride, or offered help without expectation, these mattered deeply. Recognizing them builds confidence not in our ego but in our capacity to live rightly. It shows that the effort is not in vain, that our practice is bearing fruit, even if the world does not notice. This inner reinforcement strengthens the will to continue, especially when external rewards are absent. In examining our actions, we begin to recognize patterns. Perhaps we react strongly to certain situations, fall into habits of avoidance, or justify small lapses in integrity. These patterns are not destiny, they are signs. They point to where we still have work to do. Reflection allows us to face these areas without fear, because it is not a space for condemnation, but for growth. It gives us a chance to prepare for the next day with greater awareness, to meet familiar challenges with new resolve, and to remind ourselves that we are capable of better. This kind of reflection is not achieved through occasional bursts of insight, but through consistent practice. Like any discipline, it requires regularity. A few minutes each evening is enough. The setting does not matter. What matters is the intention. To sit with ourselves without distraction and ask the hard questions. To listen for the answers, not from the ego, but from the part of us that knows what is right. This small ritual repeated daily becomes a mirror for the soul. It keeps us honest, keeps us humble, and keeps us focused on the only victory that truly matters, the victory over our lesser impulses. Through this practice, we come to see life not as a random sequence of events, but as a moral training ground. Each day offers lessons if we are willing to learn. Each mistake points to a virtue not yet mastered. Each act of integrity reinforces our foundation. And each night we return to ourselves to ask, did I live true today, or did I stray? Did I live in alignment with who I want to be, or did I allow fear or pride to guide me? The answers do not define us permanently, but they guide our next attempt. Let us not fear the answers we uncover in silence, for they are not a judgment but a guide. What matters is that we return to ourselves each day with honesty, with humility, and with the resolve to do better. In this simple practice of observing, adjusting, and recommitting, we find the path to a life of depth, steadiness, and quiet strength. Not because we are perfect, but because we are willing. And in that willingness, each day becomes a new chance to live with intention, to shape our character, and to move a little closer to the peace that no circumstance can take away.